we have asked this question on Global Lens. How much longer is it going to take before this conflict escalates and widens in the region? But now it seems we have our answer, because none other than the Defence Minister of Israel has gone on record to say, and I'm quoting him here, "We are in a multi-front war and coming under attack from 7 theatres." He's named Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Judea and Samaria and the West Bank, Iraq, Yemen and Iran. He goes on to say, "We've taken action in 6 of these theatres. I'm guessing the only one left out is Iran." What should be made of this statement that has been made by the Israeli Defense Minister, and the fact that countries around the world are now increasingly concerned about the geopolitical, military and economic ramifications of this war that no longer seem to be confined to just Gaza?
Yes, well, the question we'd like to ask is when it's going to end and not when it's going to escalate. But the Minister of Defense is right and he's wrong. Yes, it is 7 fronts, but it is one war. We are fighting against one enemy that is orchestrating it. There is an octopus sitting in Tehran and orchestrating everything, and all its proxies, because we have no war with Iraq. It's not the Iraqi government that is fighting with Israel. It's Iranian-backed militias in Iraq. We have no current conflict with Syria or with the Syrian government or Syrian army. Again, it's Iranian-backed militias acting there and being part of the supply chain from Iran to Lebanon, where Hezbollah is backed by Iran, also proxy. While we have no problem with Lebanon, we are not at war with Lebanon or with the Lebanese army. So it's all one war, just taking on different facets as it fits. Now, you alluded to the fact that the world is worried, and I think rightfully so, of economic consequences. Because in the end, the problem Iran has is not with Israel, it's with the West, with Western values, with free trade, and therefore their hope, after they failed to get oil prices to go up and to create shortage that we have seen in the past conflicts, that some oil embargoes and some price hikes dramatically impacted the West. This time we have not seen that, despite the efforts, and therefore the hope of blocking the Suez Canal, which is a very important throwaway to Europe from the Far East, was a hope also, but we have not seen. There's been a slight raise of price of oil, but this is still less than it was at the beginning of the conflict. So therefore, it's not that significant. They would very much like to see the world in economic crisis, but I don't think we're heading there. It's going to raise the cost of shipping. It may affect the price of oil. It will create delays. I think some people in Europe who are waiting for their Christmas presents might get a bit of a disappointment. But besides that, again, it's one war, one enemy that's orchestrating everything. And in the end, if it does escalate, it does mean that Israel will have to strike at the head of the octopus.
The head of the octopus. You may call it one war, but the 7 fronts on which it seems to be taking place now is most certainly a matter of concern, I'm guessing, for Israel and indeed for the international community. And let me also quickly remind our viewers, as you mentioned there, of course, sea trade has taken a hit. Shipping in the Red Sea area has taken a hit. The Biden administration is increasingly concerned over the growing death toll in Gaza, given that President Biden faces a tough election against Donald Trump just next year. And Iran has issued a threat to Israel. The IRGC has threatened to avenge the killing of Syed Razi Mousavi, its senior commander, saying the Israeli regime will undoubtedly pay the price for this crime. So let me bring in Dr. Alexander Grinberg at this point. Dr. Grinberg, it is your Defense Minister who says we are fighting a 7-front war. How costly do you think this war is likely to be for Israel and for the larger international community? Because worries are now growing on multiple fronts.
Well, I think our defense minister only emphasized the fact of what is going on. So yes, if Iran is attacking us on several fronts, and we will strike back. If the Houthis, orchestrated by Tehran, pose a threat for the global trade, so the United States must determinately resolve this issue.
Okay, you're saying the defense minister has just stated the facts, but the question really is, as I said, how costly could this prove to be both for Israel and for the international community at large? We are given to understand that this war has already tripled the budget deficit for Israel.
Well, look,
this was a statement that was made by the finance minister of Israel in the Knesset on Monday. Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know how much costly it will be. No one wants it to be costly. No one wants war. But if our country is attacked by another country and by another country's proxies, so we will defend ourselves. I think it's quite simple.
Okay.
We cannot renounce to the protection and defense of our citizens because it will be costly. So it will be costly, but we will strike back the enemy.
Okay, of course, the big question that many have also asked is what happens if a country like Iran gets sucked into this war? I need to take a quick break here on the show, but we will continue this discussion on the other side.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है Money9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
Welcome back. We're discussing the Israel-Hamas war. Let me now go across to Major General Ashwini Sivaj. General Sivaj, you've heard what the Israeli... Okay, I'm told we don't have General Sivaj with us right now. Okay, let me go back to Dr. Alexander Grinberg at this point. Dr. Grinberg, the question I was asking is, many Israelis seem to think that it is Iran which is the chief architect of the 7th October Hamas terror attacks that were perpetrated against Israel, and that it is with Iran's backing, funding, possibly military training that those terror attacks were made possible. Now we are looking at a situation where Iran is openly showing threats to Israel in the context of a senior IRGC commander being assassinated. How do you see Iran's role in all of this, and do you think there could actually be a situation where Iran directly gets involved in this conflict?
Okay, thank you for that question. First, I don't think Iran orchestrated everything in the attack of Hamas. It was the attack by Hamas. But Iran, of course, supplied intelligence and helped Hamas with weapons, because Hamas launches AT guided missiles, Cornet, made in Iran upon a Russian license. And Iran, of course, praises the massacre that Hamas perpetrated, and Hamas positions itself as an active supporter of Hamas, of what Iran calls Mahvar-e Muqawamat, the axis of resistance. That all that doesn't mean that Hamas wants to sacrifice itself or its closest proxies like Hezbollah for the sake of Hamas. And the third thing is that Iran cannot be involved directly in war with Israel and or America, because it is simply physically and technically impossible, because Iran is a very weak country from the point of view of conventional military might. Iran doesn't have a significant air force, etc., etc. All attack potential in Iran lies in its asymmetric capacity, included proxy wars. So I don't think Iran is able to retaliate military to Israel. It can do something, of course, but I don't think it will be up to the scale of the blow that dealt Iran. And Iran, of course, can stage numerous terrorist attacks against Jews, Israelis, or Americans global-wide, as they used to do. And they may attack, for example, in Iraq, in Kurdistan. They also used to do that a year, they done that a year ago, attacking Erbil. Why there? Because it is the closest point to Iran, where Iran can conduct actions itself without resort to the services of proxies.
Okay.
Hezbollah, there is also another, of course, Iran can order Hezbollah in principle, but I'm not sure Iran will do that because it will compromise Hezbollah. Hezbollah, in the end of the day, it's true, it's orchestrated by Iran, but it is also a Lebanese party. And currently, all the critics of Hezbollah blame it for being Iranian agent and not protector of Lebanon's interests. So if Hezbollah reacts in a more serious way than it is doing now, it will also mean escalation that Iran does not necessarily want, and it will compromise Hezbollah because it will corroborate all the accusations towards Hezbollah that say they're protecting the Iranian regime, not Lebanon's interests. But again, what I say doesn't necessarily mean that this exactly is the logic of Iran.
Okay. Major General Savage, let me come to you now. The Israeli Defence Minister has categorically stated the country is fighting a seven-front war. He says they've taken action in 6 of these theatres, and these are all areas where Iran-backed militants are known to be active. And the 7th front that he's named is Iran itself. My question to you simply is, how complex and costly do you think the 7-front war could prove to be for Israel and for the larger international community? Because as I keep saying, the military as well as the economic costs keep going up.
Very correct, Neha. But in case if one is not directly going after Iran, the fact that Iran-backed Houthi rebels are now creating a problem in the Red Sea, that they are not allowing the commercial vehicle to use the Suez Canal. And that's why majority of the ships are now going around African continent through Cape of Good Hope. This has changed the complete, one can say, the situation in this area. Earlier, what was happening is that one was thinking that possibly Iran will not come directly in this war, and America has also sent its 2 aircraft carrier group in Red Sea to basically challenge Iran not to venture and directly involve itself into the war. But the way it is using Houthi rebels, especially in Red Sea, it has thrown the whole economy of the world now in a jeopardy. Now, what is happening is the 12% of the trade comes through Red Sea going through the Suez Canal. That completely is now being diverted and taking the route toward the basically African continent. Now, this has made 2-3 things. One is the trade is costlier by 23%, and it takes 14 to 15 days more, and the insurance has gone to 18% more. And therefore, what has happened after Russia and Ukraine war, the food, fuel, and fertilizer became costlier. They will become further costlier by this. So therefore, Iran very cleverly using Houthi rebel to put pressure on the world as well as Israel to stop this war. But now the US is in double mind as to how to handle Iran. Now the point is that Iran is not directly coming into war, but Iran is using very cleverly the Houthi rebels, which have really jeopardized the complete trade of the world, because majority of the oil as well as the LNG come through this route only to basically Asian countries and European countries. And this is the shortest route from Asia to Europe. So the question comes is, will this war remain the way it is, or there are scope of it is going and enlarging, that US start striking on Iran, or Iran is the one which is using its drones? Now there have been rumors that the two ships of India which were basically hit by drone, they have been come from Iran. That's what US is telling. So we are on a very thin line and thin edge. So far the war was only restricted between the Israel and Hamas, and also certain proxy of Iran like Hezbollah and Houthi rebels. But now it enlarging into a major conflict, especially in Red Sea, and US going after Iran. There is a certain possibility, and that will, in fact, will change the shape of the whole war, because the China and Russia very cleverly are watching from the sideline. They are not opening their card, though indirectly they stand to gain. China, because their Belt Road Initiative was come under scanner due to this India, Middle East, Europe corridor was to be made. That has now come in cold storage. So China has indirectly got advantage. So is the Russia, because the Russia-Ukraine war, where the focus was on Ukraine and NATO and Europe countries, and US was giving a lot of aid to Ukraine, that has now been diverted to Israel-Hamas war, and that has also directly benefited Russia. So to them it is benefited. They are not opening their card. What is their stand on that the Houthi rebels are now targeting the commercial vehicle in the Red Sea? They are not openly coming out. However, to me it looks like that the problem can go out of hand, and this can create a regional war, and that war then can further flare up. So therefore the point is, Neha, this is a very testing time. The next few days will tell us whether this war will be curtailed, or this war has a potential to enlarge itself.